All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the Everything College Football Podcast. Today, me and Nick here doing our best bets for Week 13 in college football. Every week, we look at how we did the previous. Only our second losing week of the year, Nick. It's been a very successful 25 campaign, but it was a horrible week. 0-5, missed the boat. A couple of these were close. Coastal Carolina, USC, Minnesota needed the ball to kind of roll in their way to hit those, and it just wasn't able to happen. Air Force UConn wasn't even close. USM is nearly 4-point home favorites, got dogged by 30 plus. It's just how it is in the sport sometimes, Nick. A horrible week, but we live with it and we move on.
Yeah, we move on. We're going to certainly try to be better this week. It was a misread, right? Some of those were close, some of those were not. I really figured the Air Force UConn game would have a lot more points. I was stunned at how low that total was. USM, I don't know what happened there. I can't believe they really lost the way they did. Minnesota, that one hurts because there was that controversial touchdown that ended up covering it for Oregon late in the game. And Minnesota, had a good shot, but they could not find the end zone at the end of the day to cover the lofty spread. They put up a great fight, though. I give credit to the Golden Gophers. That's still a really good football team. USC and Coastal Carolina fell just short as well. But clean week, right? New week. We're going to get back on it. Obviously, a weaker week in college football with a lot of the top SEC teams playing some weaker opponents, including some playing FCS teams. So interesting board in general. Going to see what we can do this week. We have some bets here that we like, though.
Getting things started with an SEC rivalry down in Gainesville. Florida hosting Tennessee, 4.5-point underdogs. I'm taking the Gators to win this one outright. I know this team's record isn't pretty, sitting at 3-7. They've played a complete gauntlet of a schedule, and here's another ranked opponent, right? But the thing is, they've played all these teams incredibly close. The Texas A&M game was very close for 3 quarters. Lost to Georgia by 4. Led Ole Miss in the 4th quarter. So they're playing the best of the best, and the defense is hanging in there as best as they can. I don't know they ended up getting slaughtered a bit against Ole Miss, but they came up with some stops and 4th down. And they were able to keep that game incredibly close. Against Georgia, held that offense in check for majority of that game as well. So this is a defense that's been competitive. They've struggled a little bit against the run the last couple of weeks. Tennessee, of course, has a nice rushing attack that puts up 176 yards per game. Joey Aguilar this year has had a phenomenal season, almost 300 yards per game himself through the air with a nice trio of pass catchers. I think Kermani McLean, Devin Moore are going to make that a competitive matchup through the air. I think Florida, they're going to play with some more energy in the trenches. And I think with their own offense, it's been a big struggle some year for them. DJ Lagway still has more picks than touchdowns. The run game's not been sharp. Jaden Baldo's still a nice physical runner. There's been some injuries at receiver for Florida. Vernell Brown should be back to match with J. Michael Sturdivant and Hayden Hansen. And then TJ Abrams stepped up last week. Tennessee, their defense has not been great this year, giving up 29 points per game. They give up a lot of yards, a fair amount of points as well. And even against some of the weaker offenses, they've struggled. Almost 500 yards they allowed to Kentucky. I know they're playing from behind, but still, that just kind of shows you how bad the defense has really been for Tennessee. They have a respectable pass rush at times. The secondary this year has not benefited at all from being incredibly beat up, even though Colton Hood's had a nice year. Long story short, I just think Florida, Nick, here at the end of the year, what are we playing for? Bragging rights. That's it. We're going to take a lot more risks. We're going to take a lot more shots, and I think they have a great opportunity when it comes to beating their rival, and they've done it before here at home, and people don't expect them to. It happens quite often, it seems, most recently back in 2023. I picked them to win that game as well, the Gators, and they won it handily. So I think Florida, money line, best bet here. It's worth the risk. I know neither team's probably all that sharp. I trust Florida a lot more than Tennessee in this spot, though, to be honest.
Yeah, I think this is worth the risk, right? This is worth rolling the dice a little bit here. I think playing in the swamp in Gainesville is always going to be a tough environment. This Tennessee team, I just don't think they're a good team, right? I know they're ranked 20th in the nation, but I don't think the 20th best team in the country, and they're not a playoff contender, and they're just not a great team, in my opinion. Their defense has been the problem. Nearly 29 points per game given up. It's just absolutely brutal. They've given up so many points, and the stats aren't bad necessarily, but that's obviously a huge number there. 3.41 yards per attempt on the ground. Given up is not a terrible number, 5.25 yards for play, but the defense just hasn't really been that good. The offense has been great for Tennessee, 43.4 points per game. Yes, certainly a strong number, but in general, I think the stats are a little deceiving here. This is a Tennessee team that I don't think is really that strong necessarily. They've lost a lot of games, scoring a lot of points, and even some of the bad teams. They get 31 points to Arkansas and 34 points to Kentucky. So I just don't think their defense is really that strong. And while Florida is not really a great team either, scoring only 20.8 points per game and giving up 23.6 points per game, they've changed things a little bit here. They fight hard against some of the best teams in the conference. They lost by only 4 points to Georgia, lost by 10 at Ole Miss this past week. They're putting up a fight against some of the best teams in the conference here, and I think this is finally their opportunity to catch one of these teams sleeping. I know they caught Texas sleeping early in the year as well at home. That was a big win at home. I think they're in line for their big one here. I think they have a really solid roster across the board. I think Lagway, despite the turnover problem, is still a really solid quarterback. I think Aguilar is a good quarterback as well. I think Jaden Ball has turned himself into a really solid back for this team, the number one back. And I like some of the pieces they have rushing the passer. Cameron James, I think, is really solid coming off the edge there. 3.5 sacks in the season for him. This win would make a lot of sense for Florida, right? They're playing at home in front of a large crowd. They got really nothing to play for this moment in time, while Tennessee also is not going to be competing for the playoffs. They're kind of just limping their way through the rest of the season as well. They still have some tough games on the schedule, obviously, in the future for the Volunteers. They still got to play Vanderbilt after they play Florida, which is a big game for their rivalry. I think they're going to be looking forward to that one and kind of overlook this game. These are two teams that played each other a lot, obviously, from their SEC East days. They go back and forth here. The Swamp's just a very tough place to win. Tennessee's never really had much success down in the Swamp, and I don't think they'll have much success here either. I think Florida will win this game. They're going to put a good fight on the board. They're a very solid roster. I know they haven't had a great season, but I just think this is an opportunity for Tennessee to be caught napping a little bit here and for Florida to have a really strong day.
Now we move to the second best bet. We stay in the AC or the SEC. That is Texas hosting Arkansas. Nick is a big fan of the over in this game. I'm more of a fan of the cover by the Longhorns, and I think this one's certainly going to be tough because this offense by Arkansas is incredibly resilient. 470 yards per game, 34 points per contest. With those numbers, you think that they would be more than 2-7, but when you play an absolute gauntlet yourself, that thing is going to happen, right? They lost Arkansas or Ole Miss, that is, early on in the year in a shootout. Tennessee in a shootout, Texas A&M, they made that one incredibly close there late. So they've played some of the toughest teams in the country as close as you can, other than getting blown out by Notre Dame at home. That ultimately costed Sam Pittman his job. They lost to Memphis, where they put up a lot of points and didn't really do much in the second half. So it's been a tough year for them. But this is an Arkansas offense led by Taylor Green. It's incredibly resilient, of course, going up against that Texas defense that they're pretty disappointed last week, right? They had it close with Georgia in the second half, had an opportunity to make something happen. They give up a touchdown, then they give up an onside kick, and then just the whole boat fell out after that. And that's going to be incredibly disappointing for Steve Sarkisian and his bunch, because this is a very talented defense led by guys like Anthony Hill, Colin Simmons, a very physical defensive line, a secondary that's really reeling, Nick. I mean, they've had some real troubles this year, a lot more than I thought they would. The last month has just not been good for this secondary. They've given up 3+ passing touchdowns in 3 straight games now. In Arkansas, they like to throw the football. Green can really do that with a lot of effectiveness. Omega Blake, Raylan Sharp, some impressive pass catchers. I think for Texas, though, they're going to be playing a defense on the Hogs is not very good themselves. That's a big reason why they're not very good, right? Because they give up 400+ and 30+ points per game every single contest. And I think for Texas, the offense left a lot of opportunities on the field in Athens. Arch Manning's receivers didn't play very good. He didn't have very great accuracy at times either. The run game, I think, despite some flashes, didn't overall get going, led by Q Wisner. I think this is an opportunity for them to really get things going in terms of balance. The run game for Texas has been just terrible in conference play. But I think this is going to be one of their better performances. I think there's a lot of bitter taste in their mouth, Nick, and I think them winning by 10 points is at least going to be doable for Texas. So I think they're going to get the job done with this cover. Arkansas, though, they can backdoor at any moment, and that's a real danger.
It certainly is a real danger. I love the over in this one, by the way. I think the over would be a really good thing to look at if you want to throw a play. That was on my short list at 57.5. I think these teams will trade punches early while Texas will pull away late and get the job done. I'll start with Arkansas. Dare I say the most fun 2-8 team in all of college football. They're a fun team to watch. I understand they're having a very bad season, but I'm curious to see what the future looks like in Fayetteville. I think if they get the right coach in there with the NIL money and the way they can construct their roster and the talent in that area, they may be competitive in the future. I think they're a very fun team to watch. 34.1 points per game on offense, 5.89 yards per attempt, 7.22 yards per play. I mean, this offense is absolute dynamite, led by Taylor Green, who is so fun to watch, 2,500 yards passing, 19 touchdowns, which is why I think there'll be a lot of points in this game. They'll hit the over there. I think Washington is a really solid running back for them, and then Omega Blake's a really fun player to watch. But, man, their defense is absolutely abysmal. 32.3 points per game given up, 4.66 yards per attempt on the ground, 6.18 yards per play. They've lost 8 in a row and just been really giving up points after points. They gave up 56 to Notre Dame, gave up 45 to A&M. They just give up points all over the place. They are a brutal unit in that regard. As for Texas, this is a really solid team, even though they are going to miss the college football playoff with the way that's kind of shaken out. Maybe they beat A&M. They have a case even with 3 losses. I don't really think they have a case, but we'll see how it all shakes out. I think for all intent and purposes, they are out of the college football playoff this moment in time. 27.6 points per game for Texas. This offense is kind of finally finding a little bit of a groove here. They definitely had a bad day against Georgia, but prior to that, they were good. good against Mississippi State. They were good against Vanderbilt. They had a bad day against a tough Georgia defense. Certainly not going to totally knock that against them. The defense has been good for this Texas team throughout the season. I think this defense will, hold Arkansas at arm's length. I think Arkansas will score a lot of points, but I do think that this will end up being like a 45-30 type of game where it really ends up putting a ton of points on the board. But this Texas team pulls away and covers this spread. 18.3 points per game given up for this Texas defense. 2.54 yards per attempt on the ground. That is a really strong, impressive number here. Playing at home, playing in front of a rowdy crowd at DKR, I think this is a big opportunity for Texas to get a key win here against a bad SEC team. Like I said, I think they'll trade punches early and there'll be some points on the board, certainly in the first half. But I think Texas will pull away and win by double digits when it's all said and done. There's just too much talent and quality for them not to win this game by double digits. I know Arkansas gave A&M a scare, but that was in Fayetteville, so I think on the road, I don't think Arkansas will be able to keep it close. I like this Texas team to get the job done and cover the spread.
Moving to my next best bet here, Houston TCU. Cougars 1.5 point favorites. I'm going to lean towards this total, though, 54.5. The last month has not been great for really either of these teams. Houston's had plenty of close contests. They had a horrible loss at home to West Virginia that really kind of put a damper in the hopes of their playoff chances. TCU, on the other hand, their offense has not been all that great. I mean, they haven't scored over 23 points over the last three contests. They blew a lead against Iowa State in the fourth quarter. Got hammered last week by 31 to BYU. They were 3-point underdogs in that game, and they ended up losing it that bad. The offense led by Josh Hoover has really just been stagnant. Houston, their defense has been very inconsistent, so something's got to give, right? And I think TCU, this is a defense that's definitely going to be vulnerable, at least to giving up yards on the ground. To Connor Wigman, Dean Connors, they've explosive pass catchers like Amari Thomas, a nice tight end, Tanner Kazile. This is a game that just seems like it's going to have offense written all over it. We're not asking for too much here, right? I mean, we just need a couple of touchdowns from both teams, and we're going to be right there with a shot to get it done at 54.5. 4 p.m. Eastern time on Fox. It'll be a day game. I think both of these teams are going to be able to put up some points here. And again, it's been a terrible month for both of those teams. Really, for me, Nick, watching them play, it's not been great. I think this is a good opportunity, though, for the points to come in and to be able to hit that total. We're not asking for a whole lot. Seems like a done deal with these two offenses that are capable of putting up a nice scoring margin.
Yeah, I think this is a big opportunity for both these offenses to score a lot of points and get the job done. TCU 30.7 points per game, Houston 29.5 points per game. There you go. That would hit it right there. That's nearly 60 points, or that is 60 points total between the two of them. So if their offenses play to their season average, this over is going to hit. I think that's the way I look at it. Really a big opportunity here. I think this TCU team has some good pieces, but just quite hasn't worked out as they hoped so far this season. 30.7 points per game. The rushing attack has not been good. 3.85 yards per attempt, 6.06 yards per play. Obviously, they're more of an air-focused offense, and that starts with Josh Hoover, who's having a strong season, but not going to get close to the heights that I thought he would. 23 touchdowns, 10 picks. 2,800 yards passing. They cannot run the ball, even though, again, they're not really particularly trying to do so. I think they're more focused, obviously, on throwing the ball. Hoover's been a little bit mistake-prone. He's made some mistakes, put the ball in some harm's way. As for TCU's defense, 26.5 points per game given up is not great for this team. 3.39 yards per attempt on the ground and 5.29 yards per play. They get beat through the air pretty easily at times, and they really do let teams get away with putting some serious numbers up through the air. Houston, they're no slouch at quarterback. Connor Wigman, I think, has really plugged in that offense and fit well. 2,100 yards passing for him, 18 touchdowns, 7 picks. He has been really good for this team. He's really solid. They also have a good back in Dean Connors, who has been solid for them so far this season. Houston, 29.5 points per game, 4 yards per attempt on the ground, and about 5.59 yards per play. Their defense gave up 22.1 points per game and about 3.7 yards per attempt on the ground, 5 yards per play total here. This is a recipe where I think it's two good offenses and two shaky defenses. I certainly think Houston's the better defense, so I think they will win the game when it's all said and done. But I think these two teams will trade points back and forth. I think 54.5 is not that particularly high of a number. I think it probably should be closer to 60. Considering where these two teams are on the season, I think Houston will eventually win the game, but then they'll trade punches back and forth. They'll put some points on the board. I like the over 54.5. I think this is a really solid play.
Now we're going to go ahead and look at another one here. When it comes to points under in the Iowa-Michigan State game, Aiden Childs will have to check his status, of course. I think the line would be closer if he was playing, so I'm not sure on that. You'll have to check it out. I like this play. I think a low-scoring affair is certainly possible. Iowa, this offense has been pretty solid this year, especially when it comes to running the football at their elite offensive line. And MSU this year has allowed 230-plus rushing in 4 different games. So, I mean, there's definitely going to be some breathing room for Iowa to run the football, and I think that should allow them to drain clock because it's not an explosive run game by any means. They're going to churn out yards, drain clock, and they're probably not going to score that many points themselves. Michigan State, their scoring offense in conference has also been pretty awful, under 20 points per game. This has been a tough losing streak for them, but they're not able to generate a whole lot of offense. And if their quarterback's going to be down and hobble, that's going to make things even worse for them. In Iowa, of course, I think the risk with them is how many pick sixes, punt return TDs, field goal blocks, and all that are they going to have? That's always the risk you play when it comes to totals in the Iowa games. That's one we're going to take here, Nick. Under 42.5 is a good play to me, but again, if Michigan State turns the ball over a couple of times, this one is going to be shattered by the over.
Yeah, it could certainly get out of hand quickly here. I just don't think Michigan State is a good team. Right, this is a bad Michigan State team. 24 points per game. You have 31.1 points per game. You have Jonathan Smith. He may be in trouble. He may lose his job in East Lansing. Things are not going well. They don't have a single win in conference play, and potentially Childs not playing just makes this more difficult for the Spartans. As for Iowa, this just has a low-scoring game written all over it. This is the type of games that they thrive in. This is what they do. They really grind out these low-scoring affairs at home. I know the offense has been better this year for Iowa, which has certainly been impressive. 28.7 points per game is not bad, but I think this is going to be a low scoring game. This has like a 28-7 type of game for me, where it's just going to be really low scoring. There won't be a ton of points. Iowa will never particularly be in danger. Yeah, you worry about potentially a pick six or a punt return, something like that, potentially changing this. But this Iowa offense, I don't think is going to do a ton against this Michigan State defense. I think they're going to run the ball, be conservative, chew the clock, really kind of let that go. And it will be just a classic game at Kinnick where Iowa is controlling the entire game. They win. They cover the spread. Probably they win by 18 to 20 points, but there's just not a ton of points on the board. I wouldn't be surprised if they shut out Michigan State either, potentially, and win 21-0, 28-0, and just absolutely shut the door on the Spartans, whose offense just I don't think is very good, and particularly even worse if Childs is not playing. I don't think Michigan State are a very good team. I think Iowa are a good team, but I don't think they're going to score a ton of points in this one. I think they'll look like vintage Iowa. A low-scoring affair for me. I know 42.5. That's a low number for sure, but I like the under in this one. I don't think there'll be a ton of points in this matchup, going down at 3:30 on Fox Sports 1.
Now the last bet Nick has here, 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time, FS1, San Diego State hosting San Jose State. Aztecs 12.5-point favorites. I can sit here and give you all kinds of analysis all I want. This one is wacky as it could be, right? San Diego State's offense blows hot and cold. They've scored exactly 6 points twice this year. They had only 17 pass yards in a win last week. They beat Cal 34-0. I don't know, Nick. I mean, this team is strange, right? I think Jaden Dingle has been respectable for him at quarterback. He has some nice guys around him, like Lucky Sutton at running back, a nice receiver in Jordan Napier. The defense has been pretty good this year, led by Trey White. Their scoring defense has been great. You look at San Jose State. They've played 8 one-score games this year. One of them did not happen last week as 10-point favorites. They lost by 45 on the road to Nevada. Nevada the week earlier was a part of our best bet ceremony. Nick picked Utah State to cover. They were up 40 points on Nevada at the half. So I don't know what in the world. 12.5, are they going to get that? I really do not know. I know that Danny Scudero is an elite receiver, and I know this passing attack led by Walker Egan always has potential to thrive. 12.5, I think, might be too much, Nick. I'm going to stay away from this one of a 10-foot pole. This makes no sense. Neither of these teams make any sense one bit, and neither does this damn conference, it appears.
This conference is completely wacky, but I like this play late night, and I'll give you a couple of reasons why. I think the San Diego State defense is legit. 12.5 points per game, giving up 2.96 yards per attempt on the ground, and just over 4 yards per play, 11 interceptions to 10 touchdowns. I think Egan's a really solid quarterback for San Jose State, but he's got a little bit of a turnover problem, sometimes a little reckless with it. I think San Diego State will force some turnovers, get themselves good field position, put some points on the board, and cover this spread of 12.5. It's not going to be the highest scoring game, I don't think. I think it will probably end up finishing like 28-10, something like that is kind of where I'm leaning here. The San Diego State offense is a decent unit, but it's not a great unit here. I think the main story for me is the defense for the San Diego State team. San Jose State's giving up 32.4 points per game. They're really bad on defense. I mean, they just got absolutely boat raced by a bad Nevada team. That is absolutely embarrassing. They're a really weird team, San Jose State. I just don't think they're a particularly good team. And San Diego State, I think they play really strong football at home. I feel really good about what they look like at home. I think their home and away splits are really strong, and they have been phenomenal at home so far this season. They have 2 shutouts at home. Yes, one of them was against Stony Brook. They have a shutout against Cal at home. They're unbeaten at home. They played really strong football at home. They look good in those contests. They played phenomenal football in that new stadium down there, Snapdragon Stadium, I believe is the name of it. They are a really strong home team, which is why I like this play, because I think they're going to put up a good showing for the home crowd again. They just beat Boise State last week at home by 10 in what was a game that was supposed to be close on paper. I like what the defense can do. They have just been stifling teams all year, other than when they gave up 38 38 points to Hawaii randomly out on the Big Island. Yeah, that was just a weird fluky one there. I think this team is really strong defensively. I think they're going to go stay in their groove here. They're going to shut down the Spartans' offense, which is a good unit, but I think the Spartans' defense is bad, so that will allow San Diego State to score some points and win this game by, like, I guess a 28-10 is kind of a score that I'm picturing in my head. Something like that. A lower scoring game, but an opportunity for San Diego State, that is, to cover the 12.5 late night and have a really strong showing. I love this team at home. If it was on the road, I wouldn't touch it, but at home, 12.5, yeah, I like that. I think they'll put up a really strong showing here and cover the spread.
So for today's episode, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.